Okay, so welcome to the Bendigo Tech School's live streaming program. I will switch across to my big head. Hello. I don't know why I'm talking in a softer voice today, but I am. So welcome to our live stream for today. Today's session is going to be about Adobe InDesign. So this is part of a masterclass series. This is something that we had set up a while ago before everything changed. So I think we have a few people that booked in to run this actually at the tech school. Now, let me know if you can hear me clearly. Hopefully you can now, because I have a fancy microphone, which is lovely. It makes me feel very professional. So let me know that everything's coming through nice and clear. If not, I will fix all that up. But yeah, so this was a session that we were meant to run at the tech school. So we're now going to do it online. So it'll be a little bit different, I guess, for those of you that are joining us for the first time now. I guess there's less back and forth. It's kind of me giving you a bit of an overview and showing you how everything works. We do have chat, like I said, in the right column on YouTube there. Feel free to use that. The YouTube is about, thanks Paul, about 20 seconds of a delay from me streaming and you seeing it. So if you ask a question, I'll get to it probably in about 20 or 25 seconds. It does havoc with my timing for my jokes, but that's okay. I'll also record this session as a bit of a backup, so I can upload that if need be. I found that the past few sessions, the resolution's been pretty good. YouTube hasn't been kind of compressing as much at the moment, so that's been okay. So I'm letting those go live. I can see we've got a few people coming in for this session. So what I'll do is I'll kind of get going. Now, it won't go as long as a tech school session would, well, if you're in the tech school, obviously, because you don't want to listen and hear me talk this entire time. So it will probably go, I'm finding it about like 45 minutes seems to be a bit of a sweet spot. I'll go longer if need be, or shorter if I find that we've kind of covered everything, so that is okay. And like I said, this is the first in a series of masterclasses on InDesign. It's a pretty chunky program, so today is really just the introduction to what it is and how it works and a bit of an overview, and I guess the integration between InDesign and all the other packages. So we've already done a session on Photoshop, we've done some sessions on Illustrator. I'll just silence all my devices, sorry. So yeah, this is kind of going to wrap everything up and use it for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch off me. I'm going to get rid of my big head. I'm going to jump across here and I'm going to switch into InDesign. Now I'm going to be looking at probably this InDesign screen here. I've also got my screen up here, so I'm working on two screens at the moment, and the other one is kind of looking at my OBS software. I'm just going to switch that across. So I know I've had a few people ask about this software, so what I'm using for streaming and how I'm able to connect a whole bunch of cameras and my screen and those kind of things. So I've got another session next week. Before I finish this one today, I'll run you through all of our sessions for the next 2 weeks, actually. We have a bunch of new stuff that we've been doing, things like podcasting, 3D modeling, those kind of things. So I'll plug those a little bit later. So that's enough from me. I'm just going to make sure everything's working. My mic's coming through. I can see everyone's there. Excellent. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record on my end. So I'm going to record this session and then we'll get into it. So I'm just going to hit, I always hit the end stream button is right next to the record button. That's not good UI, and I always nearly hit it. So anyway, let's hit record. Okay, so I'm going to focus on here. So this is InDesign. So InDesign, I guess the easiest way to talk about InDesign is it is a page layout piece of software. It doesn't sound very, I guess, exciting when you say page layout, but it's really there to, well, lay out your pages, you know? So we're talking about things like creating PDF documents. As PDFs have been around forever, and I don't think they're ever going to go. We still seem to be using PDFs all the time. So for laying out documents, you know, resumes, multi-page things, basically any kind of, I guess, pamphlet or booklet or anything that you get is probably made in InDesign these days as well. I remember using this a long time ago. We had another bit of a program called Quark Express, but this is probably the industry standard for this. So if your students are wanting to get, I guess, a career in graphic design, in advertising, and we're talking about like, you know, marketing materials, those kind of things, InDesign is what they will need to use, basically. It is the industry standard for page layout and for doing those kind of things. And like I said, it's heavily integrated into the whole Adobe package, Photoshop and Illustrator in particular. It's all kind of tied together. So I'll give you a brief overview of how that works. And I guess, like I said, page layout is the focus of it here. So I'm going to leave my mic over there. All right, so what we have, I'm just going to start a new session. So I'm using InDesign 2020. You may have InDesign 2019, 2018, you may have a different version of it. But generally, it's pretty much the same. It hasn't changed dramatically probably in the 10 years I've been using it. It's still pretty similar. If there are new versions that come along, sometimes they add a couple of things, they change the layout a little bit, but it's generally the same. For those that have asked before, in terms of InDesign, I know if you are at a DET school, they have the whole Creative Suite available to you. So I believe you log into a special DET area for that, and you can download that, and your students will have access to it too. And I think pretty much all the schools that the tech school works with in Bendigo has access to this piece of software. So let's get started. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'll give you an overview, and I'll kind of tell you how, and then let you go and have a play with it over. You'll probably see something like this in terms of layout. Actually, the other thing I'm going to do, just for the sake of our streaming today, is I am going to increase the resolution on my screen. There we go. So that should make things a little easier for you to see. It makes it harder for me to see, but you know, no one cares about me. All right, so when we start something new, I'm just going to go into Create New. Okay, and like a lot of Adobe products, you get, I think when I change my resolution, I may have... But InDesign really is focusing on the three main areas you're going to find, I guess, documents, and that is print. So, you know, your standard print sizes there. If we go to View All Presets, you can see them down here. Okay. Now, this is kind of important. I mentioned yesterday with Illustrator, it wasn't too important what, I guess, size layout you use to begin with, because in Illustrator is a vector-based format. You're going to start moving things around. But for this, because we're going to be using print, like you may be creating an A3 document or an A4 document, I think it actually really is important to get your layout sorted first, okay? So know what you're going to be creating content for, because you don't want to start moving stuff around and changing sizes. It can be a bit of a pain. I mean, you can work in, say, A3 if you want to, and of course when you save that, you can save it or scale it down to an A4 or scale it down to an A5, but still I think this is one of the ones where I would try and stick with the platform, or the size, sorry, that you're going to be using to begin with. So there's our paper sizes there. If you go into web, it's got your basic web sizes in terms of kind of the elements you're going to use. It does have a lot of presets as well, so you can actually use a lot of these, and these are probably really good to play around with. So if you're going to have a play with InDesign, I would actually recommend kind of using one of these to have a go. Like I might even click on one now. I'll download that in the background. So you can actually have a go at seeing how they've laid stuff out and how they work on stuff. So hopefully that'll let me do that while I'm still chatting. And then we have, oh, I cannot license. Wonderful. So I can't do that, but you probably can with your version. So I'll get rid of that. So ignore me there and maybe try it on your end. Then you have mobile as well. So again, layout for mobile docs. All right, so let's go into print. I'm going to go into, I'll just go into an A4. Okay, so we're going to make a real simple kind of A4 document today. That'll be an easy one. Down here, you can see these are your page sizes, obviously. Facing pages, I'll talk about that in a second. The number of pages, you can change all that as you go, okay? And then you've got your units here as well. I work in millimeters. I've always have worked in millimeters, but you've got a few other options on what you want to work with. I'd stick with mil for me. And we'll leave it at that. We'll leave the columns as 1. Your margins, again, you can change all of this as you go through. They're all pretty basic in terms of what layout generally is, but you can change these a little bit later as well. So for instance, margins is the main one. So margins here is going to give us some margins around the A4 page. So we have a bit of white space around the side, but you may not want that. You might want to have 0 margins. You want to go all the way to the end of the page. Like, let's say you're producing like a poster and you want it to cover the whole page. That's your margins. But again, you can change all that later. So let's hit create. Okay, so here is our setup. So I'm going to try and zoom in here. I think when I changed the res of my screen, it really didn't like it. So I'm just going to reset my workspace and hopefully we'll get going again. All right, so we'll kind of move this down here. Okay, so now what we have is our layout. All right, so it seems to be a little buggy. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to just close that down and I'm just going to open up Illustrator, InDesign, sorry. Again, I reckon when I changed my screen resolution, it didn't like it. So I'll just load that up again and we'll get back to where we were. All right, you might hear my fans whizzing away because I'm doing about 50 things at once. Let's go back to A4 and we'll create. That's better. Okay, so this is our layout here. Okay, so there's our page. Essentially, this white square is representing that. I'm just going to make sure there's no chat. I'm going to move my chat out of the way so I can make sure everyone's okay. Cool. So this is representing our A4 page, okay, because that's the preset that we chose, A4. So if I zoom in here, you're going to see I'm basically zoomed out by 50%. I can zoom into 100%. So that is the 100% view of our page. And I'm going to zoom back out again, okay? there is our, we had those kind of those bleed edges. You can see them there with the pink lines there as well. So we can change that later if we want to, okay? If you go into our document here, you can see the properties of the document. So we can go back and adjust that layout if we want to, okay? We can change it around. We can also put it on landscape or portrait, but I'm gonna leave it like that. You can choose what kind of rulers you want. Rulers are actually very important because this is page layout, right? So everything you're doing, you've got to imagine that you're laying this out on the page that you want. So I'll show you rulers in a second, all right? So that's our page, and that's where we're gonna get working from. If you've done any of my other sessions like Illustrator and Photoshop, you'll see it is very similar in terms of layout, okay? We have our properties on the right here. We have our pages here as well, okay? And then we have our libraries. So the libraries are more things like type and color and those kind of things. I'll get rid of that. And you can have a whole bunch of library assets as well, but I'll go back to my properties here. So what you need to do with this is you start to kind of create how your document is going to work. Now this is where Illustrator and Photoshop come in, okay? So what InDesign is, in terms of layout, is it's going to collect all of the elements that you have that you've created in other programs, okay, and lay them out on your page. So you're not going to use this to create something new, okay? You're not going to, like in our Illustrator session we did the other day, you're not going to use this to create your logo for your page, okay? You can, there are some tools to do creation here, but you don't want to do that, all right? You want to create your content in other programs and then place them in InDesign, okay? And what InDesign will do is I guess the easiest way to put it is it will reference that image or that logo on this document, and it will kind of what's called linking. It'll link to that separate file, okay? So let me show you what I mean. It's probably easier to explain that. So I'm going to go into Illustrator. I'm going to create new, and I'm just going to make an asset in Illustrator, okay? Something pretty simple. So let that load. All right, so what I might do is I might make, I'll make the logo for this page, okay? Let's have a look here. I'm gonna go here, I'll call it Daniel Co. All right, maybe I'll make it a resume. Who knows, after a couple of these live sessions, I might need to be looking for a job, right? All right, so I've got my text there. I'm gonna make the simplest of logos. Let's go in here. I'm gonna make that a wonderful red. There we go. All right, I've got my red. I will change the order and I'll send that to back. There we go. I'll put Daniel Co in there. I will get both of those and I will center them. All right, wonderful. And I think that should have a black outline. There we go. That's a smashing logo. I would employ this person. All right, so I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm going to save this asset. Okay, I'll just do a save as, and I will save it. I'll just save it in my working playful documents folder. I'll call it logo. Okay, I'm sure that'll make more sense one day. I'm going to save that. Okay, so I've saved this asset. Okay, I've saved this logo that I'm going to use in InDesign. So now I'm going to go into InDesign, and I'm going to go into File, and I'm going to go to Place. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll go to playful.com, check it out. I'm going to open that logo, and there it is there. And then I'm going to place it somewhere, okay? So now what we have here is we have that image that I just created in Illustrator, and it's the full size of that Illustrator image. So if I jump back to Illustrator, this was pretty large. This was, what was it, like 20 centimeters or something like that? Yeah, so it was a pretty big image. And so it's placing it in Illustrator at the size that I had it, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scale it down. Now you'll notice if I scale it down like that, it hasn't scaled my image down. It's scaled the frame that it's in. And this is all going to make sense pretty soon, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the properties of this, and I'm just going to scale this image down. I'm going to move it a little bit, okay? And I'm going to just scale it down. I'm going to double click it, and you'll see I've got a different kind of box now. I've got a yellow box. I'm going to scale that down now. There we go. And then I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to go and make my frame the same size. So I'm going to go into fitting, and I'm going to go fit frame to content. There we go. And then I'm going to move this over here. All right. So that's a pretty massive logo. We'll change it in a second. But what's important here is you can see this little link. You can see there's two chain links, okay? Which is saying that this is a link. And in fact, we have a links tab. If I go into my window and I go into links, over here, you can see all of the links in this document. So it's telling me that this item here is linking to another file. And if you scroll down, you can actually see where it is. You can see where I've saved the file. You can see when I've saved it. You can see the scale I've gone down to. It tells you all the information on that file. And this is really important, okay? And you're gonna see why in a second. All right, so let's go back and let's scale this even more. Let's actually make it kind of fit a little better. You can see we have some kind of aligning options, but I'm just gonna scale this down, kind of like that. All right, and again, you can see I've still got this box here. So you have two selection boxes with an item. You have this one here, okay, which is the frame, and then you have another one, if I double click, which is the content, okay? And you can scale both of those separately like I was doing then. I'm just gonna go back into my fitting, and I'm gonna fit the frame to the content, okay? So now what I'm gonna do, I might make that frame a little bit smaller. I'm gonna move this over here, and you'll see it's gonna snap to the pink lines there, and that's going to now be that my logo in the corner of my page. Okay, so let's we'll make a resume. I think that's a good idea. Now the reason why I say links are important is this image here is not actually, I guess, embedded in this InDesign document. Okay, it hasn't made a copy of it. It's linking to the original file, so that's super helpful. What it means is, if I decide to change the original image here, if I want to change this logo, okay, if I just change it on the original file, the second I open up InDesign, it will reflect that change, okay, and it'll make that change. And so you can see how handy that will be. So let's just say you've created a 40-page resume. I've done a lot in my life. I'm incredibly talented. I've got this huge resume. And then I decide that my logo is not right. I don't like the logo I've used in the corner there. Now, if I had it in the document, right, like, so just remember if you're working on, say, Word, creating your resume, you would have to go in and change every single version of that icon, of that logo that you've used, because it's in the document. But the way InDesign works with having links is you just change the original file, and of course it changes across a lot. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to save this. I'm just going to keep saving my work as we go. I'll just save it as untitled. Okay, and then I'm going to go back into Illustrator, and I'll make some changes to this original logo. I'm going to call it, I don't like Daniel Code. It doesn't sound, I don't know, it doesn't sound big enough. It doesn't sound powerful enough. Let's make it Daniel Corp. That sounds good. That sounds like I've got more power. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the center there. I'm going to center my text, just in case Graham's watching. I've got to make sure everything's centered. No hyphens. So I'll select those two, and I'll put them there. All right. I've just realized my mouse is right next to my microphone, so hopefully those clicks aren't too loud for you. All right, so I've changed my logo there, and now I'm just going to save that. So now I've saved the Illustrator file. Okay, so I've got my save there. Now I'm going to jump back to InDesign, and you'll notice we've got this little exclamation point. Okay, so you can see already it's aware of this. And if I go in here, you can see it's updated to what the original image was. Okay, so it's automatically understood that link has changed, that original file has changed, and it's updated it in my document. All right, so that is why we have those links there as well. I might just scale that down to fit my frame again. There we go. And we're back in the corner. Okay, so that's how that works. That's how that linking works. It's super important. Is you're not actually putting the original image in here, and then when you make changes, it saves in the InDesign document. Your InDesign document is just, I guess, the file that controls the layout and the placement for all of the items you're linking to it. So much so that when I save an InDesign document, I actually don't even save any of these elements, okay? What it does is it just saves the InDesign document and all those links and where you place stuff, okay? So that's also super important as well, because if I went and did something silly, like let's just say I deleted that original file and I opened up InDesign a couple of weeks later and I deleted that logo that I made, it will now not be in InDesign. It'll be gone. The links will be broken and you'll have to relink them. So before we leave today, I'll show you how you avoid that by what's called packaging your InDesign document. So that's how that works. So I've used Illustrator to create my logo, and then I've placed it here. Okay, and the same works for Photoshop as well. So let's just say I want to add an image into my InDesign document. I want to find a really nice picture. I was going to try and see if I could take Paul, your avatar there, but it's too small. What I'm going to do is I'll jump on the internets, and I'm going to do a Graham favorite of mine, and I'm going to find, well, you probably all know what I'm going to find. I'll do that. I'm going to download, come on. Well, I don't know about you, but we're in a house where we're all teachers. So while I'm like live streaming my sessions, my wife is live streaming sessions to her kids, while my son is like watching a live stream for his classroom. So yeah, hopefully everything's kind of coming through all right. But it's a pretty bandwidth intensive world. All right, so I have my cat. I'm just going to save that image to my desktop. All right, save as. Cool. All right, so now I have my wonderful image. I'm just going to save it in Platform. All right, we're going to do the same thing, okay? Except I'm going to jump into Photoshop now, and I'm going to open up that image. All right, now here's my cat. Wonderful. So now we have my cat image, okay? And I can do whatever I want to this image. I can Photoshop it, I can clean it up, I can add elements to it, all right? What I'm going to do here is, I don't know, I should do something, right? Let's do something to this cat, just for the sake of arguments. I'm going to increase this here, and I'll give him some eyebrows. I don't know. There we go. Just so you know, I'll make some changes to it. There's my cat, and I'll make him look happy. I don't know, because cats normally are angry. All right, and I'm going to, I'm going to save that cat, and I'm going to actually save it as a Photoshop file, because I can. And I'm just going to call it cat. Okay, so let's jump back into InDesign, and we're going to do what we did before, where we're going to go File, Place, and I've got cat. And again, you can see I can place that wherever I want. And same deal as before, it's come in at the size that image was. Okay, so it's coming at that full size there. So we want to kind of scale that down if we want to. I'm just going to change my workspace a little bit into classics. That's what I'm used to using. All right, so I might just explain what I did there. So in terms of the layout, so the layout is this, I guess this interface here, where these items are here, where your links are, those kind of things. Now, these can all get moved around, just like any Adobe product. You can kind of move these around. If we go into Window, you can see what is going to be shown at any one time, okay? And what can happen is you might lose some of these. You might have something that you're missing. So what I just did then is if you go into your workspace and you go into Reset, what it'll do is it'll reset it back to the default of that workspace. So if you ever lost anything along the way, so if you're going to go through this lesson tomorrow and have a play and you find your missing buttons that I've got, go into your workspace and you can choose some of these options here. What they are is they're trying to clean up the space to suit where you're working. So if I went into, say, digital publishing, what will happen here is it'll show me all of the, I guess, the shortcuts that you generally use for doing digital publishing. So in InDesign, you can create an interactive PDF. Okay, and so what we have here when we go into digital publishing is we now have hyperlinks, we have buttons and forms, you know, so you can have it interactive, we have animations we can put in there. Now they're always in InDesign, it's just that it's made them front and center. So what I did was I went into my workspace and went to classics, because that's how I'm used to working. I've been using this for a long time. So that's how I work, and I'm used to having this space and this up here, which is why I did it. So that's what I just did then. So anyway, I'm going to bring my cat across. All right, and I'm just going to scale it down to 25%. Okay, and let's zoom back in again. And then, like I've been saying a few times, I use quite a lot of shortcut keys. It's just something you'll get used to doing over time. You know, when I'm pressing space and then moving my mouse around, which is how I can move it without having to move these down here. I'm obviously zooming up and down. I'm using A and V to select, you know. So InDesign uses the same shortcuts that pretty much most of Adobe software uses, which is really good. So once you kind of memorize, I guess, those shortcuts, you'll be able to fly through InDesign really, really quickly, which is why they have them there. So all right, let's get back to my amazing resume. I'm surely going to get a job. All right, so now we have my cat. And like before, we have our link there. So we can see that this is linked to the original Photoshop file. It's actually not in InDesign. It's linked to it. If I go to my link tab, I can see it there as well. I can see cat Photoshop and it's ready to go. And just like before, if I make any changes to the Photoshop file, they'll be reflected here. Now, if I scale this down or scale it up, all right, it's not scaling the original file down or up. It's keeping that the same, okay? So the original file is never touched. You never actually affect that original file. You never make any changes to it that's going to actually affect it, okay? InDesign can make changes. I can scale up, I can scale down, I can add effects, I can change colors, but it doesn't affect the original file, which is really good, all right? So I'll bring that cat back up, and I'm just going to place it here. So far, this looks like the best resume I've ever seen. I'm going to move it over there. Okay, so now we start to get into a bit more of the layout side of things. So then, of course, I guess you have text and boxes, right? And text boxes. And that's what you're going to start to add here. This is going to look terrible, by the way. That's fine, because I'm just trying to run you through it all. All right, so we have our text. And I guess first up is we can make a real simple text box. All right, so I've created that text box. I can snap it to where I want it to go. I can fill it out here. And then I can start typing my text in, just like a normal text editor. Okay, so welcome. Oh, I can't type. To Daniel's World. Amazing. Done. Okay. And I can now go in, of course, and change this text. Now, the text itself and anything that you used in text is in the InDesign document. Okay, that's going to stay in this document here. Okay, that's not going to change. But what I can do quite easily is I can change the layout. All right. So imagine again, if you were trying to do this in Word, is probably the best example how mind-numbingly hard Word can be. Okay, because Word's quite rigid. You know, you've got to work in its kind of template. Whereas with InDesign, you're working in a whole bunch of boxes. I guess that's probably the easiest way to explain it. So this is a text box, and I can arrange that wherever I want. Okay, I can then just get another text box and draw down here, and then I can fill out this text. I don't have if I got a ellipsum option, I used to have a thing where it would just automatically dump text in there. I'm sure it still does, but I can't remember how to do it. It's been so long. So I'm just going to do the old blah 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 blah. Right, add a lot of text. This is going to sound terrible on your streams, right? So we've got a whole bunch of text in here. I'll increase that text, and now I can move it around. So because I'm in that text box, I can change the formatting quite easily. I can then plonk it up over here. Actually, I should just do some. I should go and get some text. Why don't I just do that? I'm going to go into cat Wikipedia, and we'll just like find some text on a cat. I should make a proper cat. Alright, cat. Let's make it's gone from a resume to a document on cats. I don't know how I did that. Okay, so let's grab my cat text. I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste it in. So just Control Z. I'll go over here and I will paste that in. There we go, that's better. Now I have my cat text. So you can see when I pasted that text in, okay, because I had that text box set up already, you can see it didn't all fit. So I have this little plus button here, and it's telling me that there is more text there, okay? So what we can do is we can kind of scale that to fit. So I can change that text box whenever I want on the fly, and I can kind of get more text into there. So I can do that by changing my text box, or I can, of course, change the text itself and change the text size, okay? So I can go in, I can select that text and bring it down to 12 point, okay? So now you can see it's going to fit in there as well. And now again, I can go back in and I can just change these boxes here. Okay, so everything is in a box, so you can kind of play around with it. So I might not want this like this. Okay, I might want to center it. So you do have your text options. All right, you can go back in and we can center this text if we want to. I'm just going to center that text, make it look a bit nicer. All right, and away we kind of go. So I guess that's probably the main thing that you're doing in InDesign is you're working with these boxes, and it's super simple to kind of lay out this kind of stuff and move stuff around. Okay, which is really handy. All right, the other thing you have, of course, with this as well is all of these boxes are like shapes in themselves. So you can do things like you can add a stroke to it if you wanted to. We'll make a 4-point stroke. You know, you can add that border around there. You can change the colors. You can change the color and those kind of things. So we're going to move it over here. All right. And I'll just get rid of that stroke because it looks disgusting. All right, cool, excellent. So now we're starting to kind of lay out our amazing document. All right. So the other options we have down here, I'll just show you everything we've got and I'll let you play with them later, of course, is we have a couple of frames, okay? So your frame tool, if I drop that in there, this gives you, I guess, a blank frame to work with. And then within that, I can then place an item as well. So whereas these images here, I kind of place them in by selecting them, I can select this box and then place an item in that. So think of it like a bounding box or a mask for your document. So you can kind of put them there as well. Obviously, we've got our scissors tool, so we can cut some stuff out. We can kind of trim stuff if we want to. We have our layout tool, so this will kind of like adjust gaps. We have our selection tools. So your first one here is called your normal selection tool, which selects the box, I guess you could say, that everything's in. And then we have a direct selection tool, which will actually select the content which is in that box. So you can see there, if I use that, I can actually move that around as well. All right. And as we go down here, like I said, there are drawing tools. You can draw on top of these kind of documents. Then finally, we have our color tool, so we can choose colors from in here as well and copy those. But that's about it. Like I said, there's not much here. Okay, there's not a great deal of tools to worry about because it is all about laying stuff out and using the content you already have. So let me just fix this up here as well. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this. There we go. And I'm going to kind of move it here. So I'm not going to spend too much time on actually designing this. That's a conversation for another time, right? Like doing design and layout. It's just about how the thing kind of works. All right, I'll show you a couple other things which are important. Okay, so I'm going to go into my view. I'm just going to go, let's just zoom in a little bit here. All right, so I go into my display mode. You can tell I haven't used InDesign for a while. All right, where is it? In view. And there we go. Okay, so this is another one that's kind of important if you're using InDesign for the first time, is how it's going to look on your screen. Okay, so we've got screen mode. If I go into normal, you see everything. If I go to preview, all right, I'm going to zoom out a bit. That's showing you what your page is actually going to look like. Okay, so some people like working in preview mode because it's like working in the actual page. So you can see what your final printed page will look like by changing that mode. If we go back to screen mode, we go back into bleed. I haven't got any bleed lines set up, so you're not going to see that. But if I go into, I'll go back to normal. So there we go there. So now we're back into kind of like your layout mode there. So there are your two, I guess, views you really want to be working with. Is either you're going to be working in normal mode or preview mode. And sometimes you might toggle between the two to see what works. The other one which is important is this display performance. Now what that is doing is that's changing how the screen actually looks. So I'm going to put it on, let's see if I can put it on fast display and show the difference. There we go. So if I put it on fast, you'll notice what it's done is it's actually got rid of those images. They're still there, but it's got rid of the rendering of showing them in InDesign, because InDesign, if you're working with a document that has, I don't know, 1,000 pages, right? Like having all of those images on screen at one time can really start to make your computer chug. So the reason why they've got that is if for people that are working through these huge documents and they want to fly through them, they want to scroll really quickly, you can change the performance of InDesign. It's also really helpful for people that might have slower computers. So I'm just going to go back to chat, make sure everyone's okay. Like maybe possibly slower machines. Can you explain the bounding box tool again? Cool, yeah, I will, Paul. Yeah, so if you've got slower machines, then changing the display performance of your of InDesign can help speed that up a little bit. So you have a few options here. If I go back, I've got a high quality display, and what that will show is, if I zoom across here, the actual image itself in perfect quality. You can see how nice that looks. By default, it's going to be just on typical display. So you can see it's kind of jagged there, right? So it's showing me the image enough that I need to see, but it's not like super high res, which is why it can kind of speed through it. Now my computer's pretty fast, so I'm not stressing too much about that. You can see I can kind of move it around, and it's pretty quick, so it's okay. So let's kind of zoom back out a little bit. All right, so I might just show you a couple of other things in terms of layout, and then again let you have a play with it and see how it goes. Okay, let's go back across to my page. All right, so we talked about stroke color. The next one here is your pages, okay? So when you create your document, you can start to create as many, I guess, pages as you want. So let's just say we're starting to build my cat resume up, and I'm gonna start to have a few more pages. I can just hit plus there, and there's my page 2, page 3, and you can see it's actually laying them out like a book, okay? So we can see there's page 1, and I can jump to that. Obviously page 2 and 3, if it's gonna be like a normal book, has, you know, they're kind of connected. All right, which is pretty cool because you can overlay content as well. You know, it can run from one to the other. So this is an A4 page booklet. All right, you do have over here your masters. Now this I'll probably go into on another video where you can actually create like a template. So if you're doing a document, like you might have a school document that's going to look the same every single time. You might have a template that actually has the icons and has the layout and it has all of your stuff that you need, and you just use that, and that'll be in your template. So we'll show that in another video where it's a little bit more in depth on that kind of stuff. So there's our pages there. Our layers, we still use layers here. I only really have the one layer, but you can do multiple layers, just like you can in Photoshop and Illustrator, and kind of layer things on top of each other. That can be helpful in terms of, I guess, working. I find that what I would sometimes do is I would have a layer here, which might just be, if I double click that layer, I might say this is like logos. And so I might have whatever logo I need on that layer. So if I select this guy here, I'm going to move him up to my logo layer, okay? And how I find that's helpful is sometimes you can obviously get rid of it. I can lock it so I can't accidentally select that. So what I've done with InDesign when I use it a lot is I might have a layout set up that has some elements that are never going to change. They're always going to be in there. I'm not going to move them. I'm happy where they are. I'll put them on another layer and then lock that layer. So that way I don't interact with them. I don't move them around if I don't have to. So that's why you have your layers down there. And then your links, like we said before, they're the links to all of those files that we're kind of linking together. And at the moment we've only got the 2. Okay, so now we're doing that. I might just bring up, I'm going to go to my workspace. And again, I'll probably spend more time on this in another session, but I might just show you an interactive version here. Okay, so I've just changed my workspace to be into an interactive version. So now I'm going to turn this actually into an interactive PDF. Okay, so what we can do now is you can see I have a few other options here. So I'm going to select, welcome to Daniel's World. and click on hyperlinks, okay? And so now what this is going to do is it's going to build in all of those interactive elements that you are probably used to when you see an interactive PDF, okay? So I'm going to link, I'm going to grab a link. I'm just going to go back up here. Let's just copy that. All right, and down here, I'm just going to put in cut. There we go. So now what it's done is it's turned it into an interactive link. So when I say save this as a PDF, it's now an interactive PDF. They can actually interact with those buttons, okay? But it kind of looks pretty bad because it's doing it by default. I don't like the underline. I can still keep it looking however I want, right? But I don't have to have it looking like an interactive link if I don't want to, okay? So I still might want this to look like actual text, all right? Because sometimes you might want to try and combine the two. You might be printing this document, but it's also going to be an interactive document online. And I kind of like the idea of them looking like they're always online versions, which this does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that into none. Okay. So actually, I'll explain this one in a second. So what I've just done there is I've got rid of that hyperlink view that it normally has. Okay. And up here, you have what's called your character styles. And so that had a hyperlink style, which was that one there. I've just gone back and said, turn that style off. So it's still a hyperlink. Okay, so if I click on that box, you can still see that in that here, I still have my hyperlink. Okay, I actually wrote that wrong. Let me get rid of that. There you go. I still have my hyperlink on that text, but it doesn't have the hyperlink character style. So it's not blue with the underline, I guess is what I'm getting at. So you can change character styles as you go through. Okay, so character styles we'll go through in a more in-depth lesson a little bit later because they're all about basically creating shortcuts. So you might have a character style for all of your headings, and that could be they're bold, they're using Comic Sans font, and they're 24 points big. And if you save that as a style, it allows you to, again, save some time and use that across everything. So I probably should show that while I'm talking about it. So let me just go into new character style. Okay, I'm going to call this my text. All right. And then from here, what I can do is I can start to customize this. So again, this is another tool that'll save you a lot in InDesign. I'm going to say it's my favorite font in the world, Comic Sans. Okay, it's regular, and it's going to be 12 point. Okay, and I'm going to save that. Okay, so now I have a new character style called text, and if I click on that, there we go there. My text has now turned into that character style. So again, depending on what you're working with in InDesign, you might have a whole bunch of these character styles that you use on your documents. So I know when I was creating InDesign docs, I would have text styles or character styles for my headings, one for my text, and one for my my referencing, okay? Which just meant that I could type anything I wanted. So again, if I go into my text box and I type away, here is more text. And I might decide, well, you know, that needs to be in my normal style. I can just go up here, I can select my character style, and then I can bring it back in line with everything else. Okay, so we'll just select that, select that, and we'll go back to my character style. Okay, so they're really handy to use, and we'll talk about them a bit more in depth a little bit later. Okay, so you can create as many as you like, and then save those. So for instance, with the Tech School, we have quite a few fonts. We have like Vic Bold, I think, what's it called? Vic Bold, I think. We have a few styles of fonts that we use. We've got a design style guide which says, you know, this font needs to be for your headings, this font needs to be for your subheadings, and this font needs to be for your text. So what you would do is you would set them up as character styles, and then very quickly do that in a click of a button. Instead of going into every heading, making sure it's on the right text, the right size, those kind of things, you just have it set. You click your character style and away you go. So that's probably a good one to explain now. I'm just looking at the time. Oh, cool. All right, we better start to wrap this one up so we can go into a more in-depth session a little bit later. All right, so what I have here is we have a few more options as well in your hyperlinks or in your interactive version. We have buttons, okay? So we can create a button if we want to. So a button that you actually click on, again, in a PDF. And we have a bunch of options there in what that button can do as well. We can say what happens when you click on it, what happens when you click off it. Hey, buddy, you want to watch or... Yeah, all right. Rash just come in to say hello. We're nearly done, bud. So we'll talk more about those at a later video. We'll talk about how you can make your document or your PDF interactive and just make the one document at the one time. Can I shut the door, bud? Is that okay? I'll go shut. All right. So we better start to wrap up this one. I'm just talking about InDesign. I've got a cat. Where's the cat? You want to see my cat? It's pretty impressive. You don't like cats, do you?
Let me see.
It's over here.
I didn't design it.
Yeah, we're making like a cat resume.
What's a resume?
A resume is like how amazing you are. You normally lie in it. Anyway, so we'll talk about saving this document, and then of course you can go back and have a play with it, and then as we go into more lessons, we'll get more in depth in my amazing document. So I said a couple of things with this. I'm going to show you how to break it in InDesign really easily. So I'm going to save this, and all that's done is that save the InDesign document, and that's it. Okay, so if I go where that is, I'm going to bring it across here. All right, let me find where I've saved that. So let me just go File, Save As. I'll save it in that Playful folder. Here is we have a few files. We have our InDesign document, which is here, okay? And you see it's very small, all right? It's only about a meg, all right? And the reason why it's so small is that cat photo and that logo that we had are not saved in that document, okay? They're just links to other documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when you bust it. So I'm going to grab these two important files here, and I'm going to, how can I do this without, I'm going to move them into documents, okay? And then I'm just going to delete them. All right, they're gone. So now you'll notice straight away we get these question marks in this document, okay? Because we broke those links, it doesn't know where they are because we took them away from where they were originally hiding. So much so that if I close this down, all right, and I go and open it again, it tells you straight away it's missing these two links. I'm going to open it back up. All right, it's kind of, this here is not the actual image anymore. Okay, it's made almost like a thumbnail of what we had there, but that image is now busted. It's not there. Okay, it's because we deleted it from the original links. We put them in documents. So what you can do if you ever do that, if you forget about where those links are, is you can relink. So I'm going to go in here. You can see I've got my question mark. All right, and I'm going to relink it. Saying double click to relink. I know it's in documents. So I'm just going to hit documents. There we go there. So it found it straight away. I didn't even have to find the file. I just had to say where it was, and you'll notice it's relinked both of them. Okay, so now they're back. So that's super important. When you save your InDesign document, it's not going to save any of the other elements that you're using in that document. They're just a link. They're just a path. So there is a way around that, and this is what I would always use, and I would encourage everyone else to use it as well. So what you have is we go in here, and we have this option called Package. And Package is designed for, it's really designed for when you're finished. But what it'll do is it will package everything up. So InDesign, again, is designed for print. So what you would do is if I finished this document, I'm ready to get it printed at the printers, is I would package it up so I could email it to them. And what would happen is it will package up the InDesign document, all of the files that I've used, and even the fonts, and it will copy them all into one self-contained folder. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. I'm going to hit Package. And down here, you can see what it's going to do, right? I can say it's showing me the fonts that we're using, all right? It's going to package those. It's going to basically make a copy of those fonts. This is kind of important as well because if you're using a font on your computer and the printer doesn't have it, so again, we use, Vic Bold. It's quite a specific font. If I save this and sent it to the printers and he opened it up to print from InDesign, he would find that all the font is wrong and he doesn't have that font. He'd have to find that font, install the font and use it. Okay. And if it's a paid for font or a protected font, then you can be a bit tricky. So what this is doing is it's going to package that font up and put it into a folder for us. So that way, when he opens it, and the printer, he or she opens it, they'll be able to have everything there. So you can see my links and images as well. It's telling me exactly what those images are and where they lie. All right, colors, all those kind of things, because we're using this for print in our print settings if we had it. So it's telling me everything there. I'm going to package that up. Whoops. Let's go back to package again. Package that up, save it. Up your document. Those fonts that you are using, please make sure that you have paid for those and that the person who's going to be opening this document is paid for them as well. So there we go, and away we go. I should just move that off screen while I'm trying to find it. So what we'll do now is we will find that folder. I really don't like how Windows doesn't let you sort folders and documents by date. It does them all separately. Okay, there it is there. So now we made that folder. We just called it untitled. If I double click that, there is everything there. Okay, so there's our InDesign document again. I should have probably given it a better name. All right, there is our links folder. So it's made copies of everything that we had. Okay, and there is our fonts all copied in there as well. And there is also a handy dandy PDF preview too. So that's what packaging does, is it gets all of the elements that is in your InDesign document, no matter where they are. They could be on a desktop, they could be on a removable hard drive, wherever they are, okay? When you package everything, it grabs copies of all of those, puts them in one folder, and then it kind of rewrites those links so it knows where to open it. So what I'm getting at is that's the good habit to get into when you're using InDesign, is to make sure that either one, you have a good folder structure, so all of your links are in one place, they're not, over 20 different locations, or when you go and save it, you make sure you package it into a folder. And then what I would do is, if I was then going to open this up tomorrow, is I'll start to work from this folder from now on, and I'll drop all of my links in the links folder, so I know where they are. Okay, so that's our first InDesign session. All right, so I'll better make sure there are no other questions. I know, Paul, I missed your bounding box session. I'll run over that maybe tomorrow. The next time we have this. Oh, hi, Ref. Can these files? No. So what have we got? So can they be saved as a Google Doc? No. So what will happen is you can save them in a few formats, okay, but not in a Google Doc format. I'll show you that, I guess, Paul. So what you've got here is, in terms of your saving, whenever you save it, it saves it as an InDesign file, so you can go back and rework it. Just like if you were saving a Photoshop file, you would save it as a PSD or a Photoshop file, so you can go back and make your edits. If you're happy with it and it's done, okay, you wouldn't, I guess, you'd still save it as an InDesign file, but you probably wouldn't give that to like another teacher to work off, unless they had InDesign, I guess. Most printers, if you're going to get this for print, most printing companies will actually accept InDesign. They'll actually ask for InDesign files because it allows them to do a lot more with color and those kind of things as well. So most printers will have InDesign. But if you're done and you're ready to go and you're just going to print it at school, right? You're going to print it off. Then what you want to do is you want to export this document. So that is export here. So I'm going to hit export. And then down here, we have a bunch of options on how we want to export this. In most cases, it's going to be a PDF. So InDesign, like I said, is designed for page layout, so it is PDF predominantly. You do have a few other options though, Paul. So we can save it as a PDF, which will basically save all of this like that PDF you saw before, okay? We can save it as an interactive PDF, which is basically the same. It just means that links and hyperlinks, and if we put buttons in here as well, it would save all that as well. You can save it as an EPUB. So an EPUB is a digital book. So you, again, if it was interactive, you can have widgets that have text moving and those kind of things. You can have video in here as well. So you can have interactive elements. You can have video playing and those kind of things. That's all then as an EPUB or as an interactive PDF. So they're your options, or you can actually save to the JPEG, so one image. So I'm just going to save this as an interactive PDF for now. And I'll put it in Pluffle. I'll just call it save cat save. And I will save that. So it's designed as a PDF. This isn't a PDF for print. This is a PDF for viewing online. So that resolution is 72 dpi. It's really low. If this was a PDF for print, that would be 300 dpi. I might even show you that as well. I got the time. So that's compressing the images to make it fit really small. So I'm just going to export that. And it's just going to show it to me straight away. There it is there. And you notice because I made it an interactive PDF, I can click on that. And I can go see my entry on Wikipedia of cats. I'll just go back to my document, okay? So if I had buttons here and those kind of things, video playing, embedded content, it would all work as this PDF. You can see my cat has been, the resolution of that cat's been kind of crushed down a lot because that was a setting that we did. If I actually go back and I'll do file, export as a print version of PDF, okay? So they're probably the two main ones you're gonna use. If I go save there, all right, you're going to see this a little bit different, right? So our compression is a lot different now because now this is designed for print. So it's designed to be printed on paper or to be sent to a printer. So, and by printer, I mean a big, large scale printer. So your compression is a little bit different. It's trying to keep it at, 300 dpi because that's what you want for printing on page. And what it's saying here is it's actually going to downsample any images that are bigger than that because for printing, you generally can't, you don't print any higher than 300 dpi, okay? Your page is not going to look any better if it was like 400 or 600 dpi. It just means your file's bigger. So this will actually compress it down to fit to the perfect size for printing, okay? That's what this is, marks and bleeds. Now this is all for print, okay? So we won't go through this now, but this is all depending on where the printer is going and who's printing it. So I'll export that now, and I'm going to save it as, there it goes, crunching. Oh, maybe this did it straight away. And then now, let's just see where that guy is sitting. Go all the way to the top. Where's the top of this here? All right, there we go. So you can see the difference. It's a pretty small file, but there's our interactive version. So the version for the web at 93 kilobytes, and there's a version for going to the printers at nearly 3 times that size. Okay. Yeah, you could literally make yeah, you could, Paul. Yeah, you could make your PDF an interactive PDF. So you could have it as you could have video in there, you could have links in there, you click this, go back, you can have hyperlinks, okay, you can have buttons. The difference is, by making it an interactive PDF, is that you control the layout, right? So that's the difference. So your students can't mess with this. So once it's saved as an interactive PDF, okay, I'm gonna open this up. there's nothing, like I can't move this stuff, right? I can select text, but that's it. I can't change the layout. I can't move stuff around, right? So if you sent your kids a Word document, they can go in and mess it up and move stuff around. If you sent them an interactive PDF, it's still static. They don't need to have the fonts installed on their computer, okay? They don't need to have any of that kind of stuff. That's the other cool thing with this as well, is a PDF is like a printed version of your InDesign document. So this is always going to look exactly how I want it to look, but I can add those interactive elements. So I could have this here. Also, I haven't done it, I haven't showed it today, but I can have it so if I click on that, it opens it in a new tab and all those kind of things. But maybe we'll spend more time on interactive PDFs in another lesson. But yes, you can have this document here that has everything you want on it. It looks exactly how you want. You're sending them to go to certain places, but it's always going to be in your style. So yeah, plus stuff we can do there. Cool. All right, I'll head back, and that is about it for today. So I better wrap this one up. So any other questions, let me know. But for an introduction, I guess, as a real quick look at InDesign, I think that'll work out pretty well. So have a go, have a play with it, see how you go. Again, I would recommend downloading those templates. I don't know why I can't download them. It could be a Latrobe thing, but download the templates, they're free. And just a reminder, I'll show you where they are. So if we head back into new, I wonder if I can bring them up and show you anymore. No, I can't. Let's go home. All right, here we go. So yes, what I would do is I would definitely look at, downloading some of those templates. I don't think it wants to show them to me anymore. Create new. We'll go into print. Oh, cool, it does, yeah. So I would recommend downloading these, okay? Because now you're gonna see layout in a really cool format. I might just try to do it again. I don't know why it didn't let me do it before. Let me just try and download another one because I just want to show you how they work. In fact, I might even have it, ready for, if I can't do it now, I might have it ready for our next lesson. I'll see if I can download some of these. Cool. All right, cool. So I can't do it, but I'll use my personal account and I'll download some of these templates for our next lesson and show you how it works. But I would definitely recommend downloading these so you can kind of see how good layout works. My layout with my cat and my icon was pretty terrible, but you can download these, you can use them, and you can use them as templates. So you can basically base an entire document off one of these. So I'll get some of these ready for our next lesson and have them ready so I can show them. But I would definitely recommend jumping into InDesign, downloading these previews. If you were following along, I guess it was. So, because I try to avoid uploading the recorded version, just because it makes another video. So let me know how it went, and I'll play it back a little bit later. And I said I would do a plug because this is our last session for this week. So let me do a plug for what we have coming up. I'll just go in here and I'll bring this across so you can see. Thanks, Paul. It was a good cat resume. I'll send it to Graham. All right. Sorry. I realize again I've talked straight for an hour and I haven't drunk any water. All right. So this is what's happening for the next 2 weeks, actually. So something to think about over the weekend. So next, we're doing this now. So next Monday, we're going back into, I'm going to do that OBS software again, because that was a big request by a lot of people. So that's what I'm using now. That's the open broadcasting software. I've actually been playing around with it a fair bit, and now I can do it so I can actually connect like 15 different cameras and show you 15 different versions of me, because like, let's face it, that's what you want to do. So that's all about live streaming and how you can do things like I'm doing now. So recording a session while, having different feeds and videos coming in. So that's next Monday. This is a one that I had a request for a few teachers as well. This is not going to the levels I've been doing here by doing this live, but this is using screen recording. So my wife wanted to do some of this the other day too, because she's been using it to record her classes. So I'm going to show you two options with screen recording. So screen recording is basically recording your screen and your face as well. You can use the webcam and record your screen and your face, and also edit it later. So I'm going to show you two versions. I'm going to show you doing it in Windows 10 because it's built into it. So for people that don't have the software on your school machines, if you don't have it, I'll show you how your Windows machine will give you a real basic screen recording. Then I'm also going to show you Camtasia, because I'm pretty sure most teachers have a license of Camtasia, and if you don't, they have a pretty generous trial too. So you could trial it out for the next month or two while you need to use it. So I'll show you screen recording with Camtasia and how to edit it. Then we've got Premiere Pro, which is all about video editing. Paul, I think you're all over that, but we've got Premiere Pro, and I'm going to introduce you to that to do some video editing. So if you want to edit your screen records and make them classy. Illustrator. So we're starting, just like today's session, we're starting masterclasses on Illustrator. Then we have coding. I've realized there's a spelling mistake in coding, so I'll fix that up. So we have coding. I'll fix my typo there. In Scratch, this is really for, I guess, upper primary, lower senior year 7s maybe, using Scratch and block coding. We use it at Tech School a lot, so for our year 7s, that'd be a really good lesson. This was a request as well for some schools that are using Mac, so I'll show you some Final Cut on a Mac, which is video editing as well, so that might be there for some of you, but not for all of you. Then we have podcasting. Again, I had some teachers ask about podcasting, so that's going to be a session that shows you how to actually set up a podcast yourself or your students. It's super simple to set up a podcast they can subscribe to it in iTunes or something like that, and then they can put new episodes out every day, every week, whatever. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's all free as well, using all free software. And then we've got another Illustrator masterclass, which is up to the next level. So that is the next 2 weeks of live streaming here at the Bendigo Tech School's satellite class known as My Office. So thank you very much for attending, and I will talk to you all next week. All right, so I'm going to end the stream over here, and then I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to fix up that typo on coding. All right, see you later.